What's up, gang? Welcome to the Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Foroux. I'm so pumped to have you here with me. Now, listen, the Greatness Machine, we're about two things. Number one, people who are living their passions. And number two, those who are creating greatness in the world and doing both of these things despite the odds against them. Each episode, we're going to feature interviews with game changers, business leaders, telling us their origin stories, what made them tick, what got them to where they are now. Why? So it can help you step into your greatness within your life, your business, and your career. Occasionally, you might hear a few solo episodes from myself, moi, as I leverage my 20 years of entrepreneurship as a CEO and founder to help you grow and level up in your journey to scale your life and your business. So come be a fly on the wall, enjoy the conversation, and I'm stoked to have you here with me. Guys, welcome to today's episode of The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius Foroux. Boy, do we have a special guest. Oh my God, man. This is the first time ever in the history of The Greatness Machine. 4 years in, we have another amazing Darius on the show. Darius Foroux is in the house. What's up, Darius?
Hey, what's up, man? Thanks for having me. It's pretty cool.
Man, I'm gonna say this straight out right now that this is gonna fuck me up the whole show, that I'm gonna be asking Darius what he thinks.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, fortunately, like I have a podcast too. Fortunately, I haven't been in that situation.
Hey man, I have a really good idea. I should do your podcast after this.
Yeah,
and
we should. Yeah,
we do it. We got to do that.
yeah,
I have some cool stuff that I talk about on podcasts, and then you'll know what it feels like to ask your guest Darius what he thinks.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Should reverse
All
roles.
Right. Let's do that. So, okay, audience, I'm going to tell you right now. So look, I'm going to do my best today to only refer to, I will not be referring to myself in third person as I sometimes do on the show. So when I say Darius, I'm talking about my main man, Darius Foroux here. And man, so pumped to have you on the show. Now I was talking to Darius before the show, and I said, hey man, like I've actually been following you for a while. And one of the ways I found Darius was I was trying to buy, I think I always Google myself, and I was Googling like the name Darius as I was looking up like Darius.com. And somehow like you came into my world through like either like the Darius.com or the Twitter at Darius. Like, do you own one of those? Like, do you have like just the straight up the name Darius in any of these?
I don't own any of those. Like I don't own the URL or the handle. So I don't know. Must be maybe, I don't know, an auto suggest or something.
Yeah, you have enough.
Google.
Yeah, you have enough cred in the algorithm where you came up, and I was like, oh, that's cool. This guy's I've never heard of this person. And then I looked, and you had written a bunch of books, and I was like, oh, those books look interesting. And so I started following you on social, and I was like, oh, this is cool. This guy's putting some good content out there. So interestingly enough, my team started reaching out to you. And you have a new book, so we're here to talk about your new book today and about all the cool stuff you're doing in the world. But Darius, do you mind if I do your formal bio? And then if you don't mind, we love origin stories here at the Greatness Machine. Would love to hear a little bit of your origin story. Does that work for you?
Yeah, sounds good, man. Yeah.
Awesome. So you guys, so Darius is a really rare person. He's written 8 best-selling books. And it was really cool when I saw this because, as you guys all know, I talk about my book from time to time when I'm filling up for it. And so I noticed that he's written these 8 books, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Like it's really hard to write 8 books. And so I was like, that's really interesting. And one of the things I noticed about his book writing was that Darius basically he writes these his books are very efficient. So they're not these like, maybe that's not true of all your books, but I noticed a lot of them seem to be like straight to the point. They're thinner books. I'd love, actually, before we get into the origin story, could you tell us a little about like the types of books you write and why you write your books in that way? Because I thought that was really interesting. That was the first thing I noticed about you and your work. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, that's a really good question because when I started writing, I didn't necessarily think that I would become a full-time author. I wrote my first book in 2015, and I was in that time I was thinking about making a career switch, and we might get to that later. But I thought I have this perfect opportunity now when I quit my corporate career and I wanted to start a new business for myself. And I thought, okay, this is a great opportunity that I'll probably never get again in my life, where I can just move back in with my parents and just write a book about, in that case, what I was going through, which was to conquer fear and finally get after your dreams. and wrote. I just wanted to share everything that I've learned, that I had learned until that point, and I thought to myself, I'm going to write the book for people who, like me, don't like to read really lengthy books that only have one idea or a couple of tips and tactics and strategies. So from the beginning, I really wrote books for myself, actually, for kind of people who are impatient and just want to get to the point without, just you want to cut to the chase, right? Like that's what it comes down to. And since I self-published my first books, I never had that type of pressure or someone telling me, yeah, you know, our minimum is this amount of words or whatever. So it made sense for me to just to say what I want without any other external inputs.
Interesting. So, so let's talk a little about it. Like, as I mentioned before, you've written 8 books. I love the thought process around that, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into that as we get into the show. Because frankly, anytime I invite a guest on the show, it's just because I'm a selfish person and I want to learn things for myself. So you fall in that category, and most importantly, we share one of the best names in the world, Darius.
Yeah,
So that
that's
brings us
one
together
thing we can
today.
definitely agree on.
So we're talking about here to talk about your new book, which is the Stoic Path to Wealth. Most popular book is Do It Today, and I love the fact, I became an avid. I listened to books. So last year I listened to 52 books in 52 weeks. I've listened to over 100 books in the last 2.5 years. But you read every single day. So we got two Dariuses here that are lovers of books. Uh, Good nonfiction books, as you say, are one of the best sources of knowledge, and sounds like you're helping to contribute to that. And you're also a full-time blogger and online teacher. I think I read somewhere that you have over 500,000 readers each month that listen. Is that true in your blog?
Yeah, roughly depends on the month.
That's
So
amazing,
that's
man.
more or less, yeah.
So what I'd love to do is, let's, again, here at the Greatness Machine, Darius, we love origin stories. Tell us a little bit about your origin story. I know that obviously it sounds like you got into writing just, by chance. But I'd love to
Hmm.
hear a little bit about your background. I know outside of sharing the world's best name of Darius, lots happened to you in your life.
Hmm.
But yeah, let's hear a little
Yeah,
bit about your background, my friend.
yeah. So yeah, I was born in Tehran, and when I was one, my parents moved to the Netherlands. And in terms of culture and mindset, I really feel like the Netherlands and US are similar in terms of work ethic. And I've been working with a US publisher now for a while, and I have many readers from the US and friends, and I feel like it's very similar. So the kind of childhood that I went through was something that a lot of folks with an immigrant background can relate to. My parents always, because they came from nothing, we lived paycheck to paycheck, and it was always about money, right? So when I was young, my only dream and desire was to become so wealthy that I would never have to worry about money again. And not because I wanted to buy sports cars or wanted to be famous or whatever. I just wanted to have peace of mind. So my parents always, again, like many immigrants, told me the way to get there is to focus on your education. And that's what I did until I was 17 after high school and got my first job. And I worked at a call center almost every single day during that summer. And I started earning my own money. And I realized that I'm someone who just wants to hold on to that money because I felt like every dollar that I earn, just need to protect it. So I started forming the basis of a scarcity mindset. And all the while, just kept studying, getting degrees, and thinking about how to become financially free, financially independent. And the first idea that I had to accomplish that was to invest in the stock market, because when I was in my teens, I watched that movie Wall Street. Like everybody who loves the stock market has done, and I wanted to be Gordon Gekko, greed is good, and all of that stuff. So I bought my first stocks when I was 20 years old in 2007, and that was a year before the great financial crash. So a year later, I was down like 60%, almost 70. And that experience was so painful that I was like, yeah, I need to figure this thing out because I know that the stock market is the greatest wealth creator in the world. I need to profit from it. This is my ticket to becoming financial independent. I just need to figure out how I can do that. And basically, I spent the next decade figuring out how I could successfully invest in the stock market. And it took me reading hundreds of investing books and getting a degree in business administration and specializing in finance and making all the mistakes possible. And um, finally figuring out that the key to investing is not about knowledge and theory, it's about managing your emotions. And when I started to put everything together, I actually started to write as well, like in that 2015 period that I mentioned. And
Mm-hmm.
at the time I was, so yeah, one last thing. So when I got out of grad school, I started a business with my dad because I wanted to work in finance, but there were no opportunities at all because this was after the financial crisis. So I thought, this is a great opportunity. My dad worked in the industrial laundry industry, that laundries that do laundry for hotels and hospitals, etc. So we started the business, and I did the marketing and business, etc. Side he did the technical things, but after a few years, I was like, yeah, this is not my industry. I don't really love it. I love running a business, but I don't love this industry. So I went to London. I got a job at an IT research firm, Gartner, the US firm. And after a year of climbing the corporate ladder, I was like, yeah, this is also not for me. So I need to quit. And that's when I got onto this path that I'm on today.
That's amazing, man. That's awesome. And so, 2015, you, number one, kudos to you, man, for figuring out what you love. And we have a lot in common. I'm actually in finance. I'm in private equity. I spent 23 years in mortgage lending in the United States. Kind of came to the same conclusion that I didn't love the industry that much.
Mm,
I grew a very large business in that industry. I grew at about 1,000 employees, and then I was like, oh man, like there's nowhere to go but up from, not much bigger. I couldn't get much bigger, right? I was probably a top 20
mm,
lender in the United States, and I realized I'm like, I don't love this, but I
mm,
love finance a lot, and I love doing deals, and so I went on a big personal journey. I was around 40 when this happened,
mm,
about 5, 6 years ago, and started focusing on what I loved, which was I like doing deals. And now I got into private equity
mm,
just recently. But so that's good. That's a hard thing to do. I think a lot of times people are trying to figure out what they want to do by getting it perfect out of the gate. And I have a coach that I've worked with who has a saying, Dr. Jeff Spencer, former guest on the show,
mm,
used to be Lance Armstrong's coach. And he said, action organizes. So I actually think figuring out what you love it's a process of elimination where you're doing stuff and you're like, oh yeah, I'm closer, but it's still, I don't like this one thing about it, and this is what I would change. And I don't think there's
mm,
ever a perfect thing. I think that like there's always positives and negatives, and I think the positives just have to outweigh the negatives enough where you're like, hey, that's not perfect, but checks a lot of boxes, and I feel pretty good about what I'm doing, even though this one thing I don't love about it. I mean, maybe over time I can fix that. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, kudos to you too for making that move because at that stage you have a lot on the line. Like for me, I felt like I hadn't accomplished the things that I wanted before, right? Like becoming financially independent or having some assets on my own or having a business or a brand or whatever that may be. But if you have built something and it's doing well, I think that's even harder to step away from because it doesn't align with your passion. So yeah, kudos for making that move. But yeah, so what was the question again?
Oh, I was just asking if you thought
Yeah,
around it,
yeah,
that finding out what you love is what I
yeah,
said was I found it to be like, I think we're told do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, and I think that
yeah,
there's some truth to that as far as, yes, you should like what you do, or you need to be passionate about what you're doing, and I think
yeah,
that like I actually think that's not the best. I think that people are out there looking and they're like, oh, I'm going to do this one thing. I'm going to fall in love with it. It's like falling in love with a person. Like I'm going to meet the perfect person. And like I've been married now for shit, my wife's gonna be mad if she listens to this episode. Now, I've been married now for
Yeah.
17 years, and I've been with my wife for 22 years in August. And I'm like, no, man,
Wow.
like you whoever you meet, you're gonna like. There's gonna be things you love about them a lot more than things you don't love about them. And especially when you first get with someone, I think this is true of even jobs. Like you get infatuated with the job, or you get infatuated with the business. Maybe you'll, and there's probably some that you don't love out of the gates. But I think a lot of the times it's like, oh, it's not perfect, so I'm going to try something else. And I think perfection is a fallacy. I think the reality is to figure out what you love, whether it's a person or whether it's a job. It's a process of elimination. It's like over
Yeah,
time you're going to figure out
exactly.
what you don't like, and that's going to get you closer to what you do like. So I was just asking if you felt like that was a similar process for you, because it sounded like it was.
Yeah, definitely. And I totally agree with being perfect is definitely a fallacy. It's a unrealistic goal or aspiration or expectation that a lot of folks have for themselves. I do think that having a perfectionistic mindset when it comes to work is amazing, because that's how you get stuff done, or that's how you get great results. But thinking that your life should be perfect, or thinking that you should be perfect, is definitely a big trap that a lot of folks fall for, and especially those who are ambitious and demand to have a good life. I think it's very easy to fall for that trap. And the other thing that that kind of came to mind when you were talking is that about chasing your passion. So one of the things that I loved about the Stoics when I discovered them around that period of my life, 2014, 2015, when I was going through that transition, was that they said, work with your natural abilities, and to analyze yourself and understand what you are good at. And the funny thing is that, what I love about Stoicism is that everybody has their own interpretation. And this is why I always encourage people to read the original works, because
Mm,
when you read the originals, you can start interpreting the philosophy in your own way, versus reading a book from someone who has interpreted already and you're reading their interpretation, right? So I think both are great to kind of have a deeper understanding of yourself, but also of the philosophy. But that's one of the key principles of Stoicism, which is to work with your natural abilities. In other words, kind of translated today, is to understand what your talents are, what you are good at, and thinking about how you can utilize that to provide value in the economy, so you can and do something that you love, and can provide value in the economy so you can get paid for it. And then combine that with another really important takeaway that I had at that time from reading the Stoics, was that I think this is a direct quote from Epictetus, who said something like, stop wasting your time, demand the best of yourself today.
mm.
And I remember reading that, thinking to myself, yeah, dude, I haven't been doing that at all in my life. I've been just kind of going with the flow, and having these goals of, yeah, I want to make a lot of money, but I never really demanded the best of myself, and being very
Mm.
intentional with my time. So that when I started to put all of those things together, that's how I came up with the idea to write. But I wasn't sure whether I kind of hit that spot of, okay, this is something that I love to do. I thought I was good at it, but I need to test it. So I wrote that first book, put it out there, and then also started a blog. And within a few articles, I started to get some traction, started to publish it on social media. But a big thing was also medium.com at the time. And, all of a sudden, readers started to reach out and saying, oh, I love this, and I can relate to this, and it's so useful and whatever. And I thought to myself, oh, okay, now I'm on to something. I need to keep going.
That's great, man. I just saw on your first of all, I'm a huge fan of the Stoics. I started getting into them. I my introduction and actually most of my ingestion of the Stoics are through Ryan Holiday's books. And so we were talking about this before the show. I think he's actually, and probably yourself, And forgive me, I really am so stoked about your new book. I want to learn more about the books you've done, because we were talking about this before the show, that I'm a pretty gnarly reader.
Mhm.
But yeah, I noticed that their work, it seems to be timeless, right? Marcus Aurelius, it was, emperor of Rome, what, thousands of years ago, and these ideas around his book Meditations, which I've not read yet, but I've heard a lot about
Mm.
his stuff, and Epictetus and Cato and all these different guys, their work interpreted through Ryan, and I'm like, it resonated. It's given me a lot of like reaffirmation around how I should think about living a good life. And I think that's really like the
Yeah.
Stoicism around, like, how do you live a good life, right? How do you live a good life according to
Yeah,
the
how
most
to live
powerful
a
person on earth?
kind of a peaceful life. It's all about inner peace or tranquility, and yeah, that's the ultimate goal. That's kind of that will lead up to a life well lived. And the funny thing is that as soon as I started reading the Stoics, I started to connect that with finance and business and investing. And it's funny
Yeah.
because I never read anyone else interpret that in that way. And I kind of sat on it for many years, and then thought to myself, yeah, I need to apply this immediately in my investing strategy. And at that time, of course, I didn't have that much money, so I didn't have much to play with. So as I started to put out these books and start to earn more and do my courses, and as my website and reach started to grow, I had also more money to invest. And
Mm.
then I thought, wow, this stuff is amazing. Just in short, it's like Stoicism is the best thing that I ever discovered in life, because it's like a mental model for everything in life. I apply it to my health, I apply it to my finances, to my relationships, and of course, kind of that's the thing that Ryan has done so well, is to show people that this is the ultimate system for dealing with obstacles, right? And that's, I think, one of the main purposes or main ways that people are using it. But I feel like over the next years, maybe decades, people will keep applying it in all areas of life. And yeah, finances is one of them. Business, you can do it. Like the health thing, right? So there's this Stoic called Musonius Rufus. He, like 2,300 years ago, he wrote stuff like, eat in moderation, never finish everything that's on your plate. And when I read that, I was like, what? How do I know this? Because I struggled with my weight all the way to like the last year of high school. I was always overweight, and I remember going to this dietitian, and she told me, here's the best thing you can do. Always, when you're eating, leave just a little bit left on your plate, just like enough for a mouse or something or whatever. It's
Hmm.
not about the amount, it's about the mental aspect of not finishing everything that's on your plate,
Interesting.
because that will tell you that you are in control of your food, right? And I was like, wow, I read this from Masonia. So I'm guessing that he was one of the first to talk about those things, right? And like kind of it lived until now. And people probably don't credit him, but doesn't matter, you know?
Yeah, it's
It
interesting.
works.
Well, to your point, and when you start to look at like the this is where, whether you're looking at Stoicism or Buddhism or Taoism, a lot of it's again around, even if you look at Christianity and Islam and the Torah, and you strip away the dogmatic sides of these belief systems, like the that makes them better than another, and just about what are they actually teaching. And then it all goes back to, it's all the same thing. Treat others well. Don't
Yeah.
let your ego control. Don't be vain. And then you look at Stoicism, and it's hitting on the same topic. So I mean, I'm a huge like fan of this type of work too. So let me ask you, because you've done something unique, and I want to talk about the new book, because I think it nails it. It's called The Stoic Path to Wealth. And so, in writing this book and thinking about your own journey of building wealth through Stoicism. Kind of tell us a little bit about that. Is this that when you make investments, you're not letting your mind control your emotions,
Mhm.
control your decision making? What like if you were to sum up the book in like a few sentences, what would be a few sentences that would really tell us everything we need to know about the book?
Yeah. So yeah, very brief. The idea is that the key to building wealth is to manage your emotions, um, and also to start your journey by focusing on what you control, which is, of course, yourself, the way that you spend your time. And the way that I interpret that is start out with focusing on your skills. And for a book on building wealth, this is also what my editor said. She was like, yeah, it's interesting that you chose to start this book with a chapter on skill development. And I said, yeah, because for any person who wants to build wealth, uh, the most important thing and the only thing that you actually control is how well you are at what you do or how good you are at what you do. And that is within your control. As long as you find something that you're good at, you can only get better at it. I'm not a fan of finding out what your weaknesses are and getting better at those, because that might work with health stuff. Or if you're David Goggins and you're training for ultra marathons and you want to just be a very hard person in life, in your career it's not a smart strategy, because you'll achieve way more if you just focus on things that you're good at and then try to get to the top of the world in that area. So here's what that will do for you. If you know that you are good at something and you can basically go out into the world and earn a living with nothing else than your skills, whether it's physical, manual, or just with your mind alone, that signals something to your brain that, okay, I have this ability to earn money, so I don't have to have that scarcity mindset of, oh, every dollar that I earn, I need to keep on, hold on to it. And that's one of the most important things that I learned, was that if I want to get rich, I really need to stop thinking that way. I really need to start thinking more in opportunities and possibilities, and think that if I just start from zero, I'll be able to earn. And then when I earn, I can invest that money without being so attached to it. Right. And that was
Mm.
another problem that I had in the past when I tried investing. I either invested with all of my savings or I invested with money that I couldn't really miss. I probably needed it for whatever. I wanted to buy a car, or maybe you want to need the money for a down payment or whatever. And then you invest that, and then you start looking at that investment with, with laser focus, and then you feel every movement it makes in the market. Or if it's not in the public markets, at least you'll feel anxious what happens to your money. And then as soon as there's a slightest setback, you feel like you need to sell because you need to protect what's left. That's what
Mm.
happened to me, and that's what happens to so many first time investors, right? They start investing, and if we're in a bull market, everybody's a genius and you make some money, and then all of a sudden there's a crash or a correction, and then you know they just can't stand that feeling of pain, and then they sell, and then they're like, yeah, it's not for me. So yeah, that's really the first place to start when it comes to investing. And then all of the other stuff, like how to manage your emotions and what to invest in and how to get started. I think those are things everybody will figure out on themselves. And but as long as if you have that foundation, I think you can always trust in your own in your own ability to figure things out and make a living. And if you have that type of confidence, you'll always be fine.
I love that. So what are your thoughts around like going back to first of all, I appreciate that this controlling what you can control, right? And having this perspective of not like trying to like stripping away the opportunities for emotions to get in the way of good decisions, right? Because if anyone that studies like Daniel Kahneman's work is going to, or behavioral economics, you're going to know that people make decisions based off emotions, not based off of logic, right? This is what we as humans, this is a human condition.
Yeah.
And there's, I mean, Kahneman won a freaking Nobel Prize for this. So this is just fact. Some people are better at than others in the world of finance or in the world of business. I look at wealth as wealth creation is different than earning. So making wealth and preserving wealth are actually two different skill sets. And I think that some people are really good at making wealth and bad at preserving it. And I think I started taking the perspective, and I think a lot of times once you gain that skill set of creating wealth, you automatically think like, oh, I can go and invest because I'm good at making money doing this one skill I have. And then what ends up happening is people will, they'll go and invest their money in something that has nothing to do with how they made it, and then they either lose it or it doesn't go well, or they're not putting the right attention into it because again it's something new, and then they end up doing poorly. What are your thoughts on that? Do you feel like, how do you think of that from a position of stoicism?
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. This is why I really wanted to write this book, because I felt like there are a lot of books on how to make money. There are a lot of books on how to invest in stocks. Exactly. They're not, in my opinion, there are no books on how that teach you a framework for making sure that you don't lose everything that you've built, and that you make smart investment decisions without getting yourself into situations that you don't want to be in. And when it comes to stoicism, the most important way to overcome that and make sure that you can preserve your wealth is to eradicate the classic emotions of fear and greed, because those are the two most important emotions when it comes to investing. And yeah, like when you were talking about this, it reminded me of a story that I read last week about a former Tour de France winner, Bradley Wiggins, is this British cyclist who won the Tour de France in 2012, I believe, or 13. And at the height of his career, some people estimate he was worth about 10 million dollars, or the equivalent of it. And he did quite well for himself, right, in his career. But he recently filed for bankruptcy, and we hear a lot of these types of stories. It's normal in entertainment, and this is why I don't want to use those type of examples, because in entertainment it's like or in music or whatever, it's like people live these flashy and crazy lifestyles. But a cyclist, a real pro, and in the world of cycling, where people know that you don't make a lot of money, right? These guys work really hard to earn a living, and he did really well. But somehow, and I didn't really dig deep into it, but somehow he lost it all. And he was, in the article that I read, saying that he was sleeping on people's couches, right? So how can you avoid something like that? I think just living in the middle, living a life that's the middle path, like the golden mean. And this is something also that the Stoics talked about, because if you're always living in this perpetual state of, I want more, 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 you risk becoming greedy, where you might take certain risks and make certain decisions to every maximize your returns and potentially hit a home run. Now it's great, but for the average person, it's something that, for example, myself, I would never do, because to me it's not worth it, because I enjoy a simple life. I haven't upgraded my lifestyle in whatever 6 7 years or something. Um, I enjoy the simple life, and I think to myself, what's the point, right? If you have enough money, and enough, like what does that mean, right? Like John Bogle, the founder of Vanguard, said that you have enough if you have $1 more than what you need. I
Mm,
love that. I think that's the best definition of enough there is, because it's very simple. And if you have enough, all you need to do is just stay in the middle, live life according to the golden mean. As soon as you see that you are starting to get greedy, neutralize that by focusing on stoicism, meditation, whatever, journaling, any type of uh, process that helps you to stay grounded and brings you back to the middle and removes those excessive emotions. When you notice that you are too fearful and you don't want to invest, or you just like don't want to put yourself out there, or whatever it is, right? That is causing you to stay where you are. I feel like that's also a reason to return to philosophy or books or podcasts, audiobooks that inspire you to make something more out of yourself and out of your life, because I think we all have the opportunity and the potential in today's world to become wealthy. I really think everyone can get wealthy. If you, as long as you live in a free country, you have the opportunities, you can do it. Why not? Right? We all have the opportunity to do it. Um, the problem is that we often don't know how to do it. You know, so many distractions and contradictory information, etc. But to kind of boil it down, I think if you want to become wealthy and make sure that you not only get rich but also stay rich, live according to the golden mean.
I love that, man. And so, you know, one of the things when you were just saying all this, which I love that, just that thought process around, you know, having thoughtfulness around some of these virtues and some of these, you know, what even set the sins of life, you know, greed and gluttony and the things that create
Mm,
want, right? And you're reminding me of Naval Ravikant, right? Just talking about
mm,
like the different ways of being wealthy. One of which is like want less, right? If you want less, you know, don't upgrade your lifestyle. To your
yeah.
point, then as you make more money, it's not that you're just creating more runway for yourself to like not have to like do anything. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
times what I've watched is most people, as they make more money, they upgrade their lifestyle. The lifestyle keeps pace with, you know, with the money they make. They're not able to buy, you know, essentially create freedom for themselves, because the minute a paycheck goes away,
Mm,
that you know they're screwed, right? They have to make money in order to live. and
yeah.
and I, and I think one of the things I've learned in life is, yeah, and I get it, like people, there's nothing wrong with wanting nice stuff, but just know at what cost.
Mm,
I've often
exactly.
found, at least, and this is I'm like, oh, for me, free the price of having freedom to do whatever I want whenever I want, within reason, you know. And I don't mean as far as like taking private jets or going to space or something like that, but I mean not having to make any decision with how I spend my time because of the need to make a dollar, or else I can't pay my bills. That's a different, you're in a different mindset when you can do that. And there's two ways of doing it: either make enough money where you have enough money, where, to your point, to the Pounder Vanguard, where you have $1 more than you need, or reduce your expectations around what you need to spend money on, so that that happens
Yeah.
when, you know, it's either income or balance sheet, right? You have
Yeah.
one choice or the other. What do you think, you know, when you start thinking about this, the effects of abundance mindset versus scarcity mindset? Because I think that is, I struggle with that a lot personally. Like that's been something that over time, and even now, like I'll find myself I have these old habits around scarcity mindset. I don't think it's something that you lose completely if you have it.
Mm,
And
yeah, I
you and
agree.
I both came from immigrant family that moved from Iran. My family fled Iran in 1979. Sounds like, what year did you guys left? What, after 1970s? Is that
Y-
correct?
Yeah, 87 during the war between Iran and
Iran and
Iraq.
Iraq, right? So
Yeah.
so your family fled and went to find a better life. My family fled
Mm,
and went to go find a better life. And my mom's family grew up with a scarcity mindset. So I grew up with my mom and my dad having a scarcity mindset,
yeah.
and I ended up having a scarcity mindset. And even now, like objectively, like there's no reason I'm in a financial position where I ever have to really worry about a lot of stuff. but I still find myself having a scarcity mindset that I have to like overcome from
Yeah.
time to time. How do
Yeah, me
how do
too.
yeah, it's like it's almost like a
Yeah.
virus, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. In some areas, right? Because when it comes to spending, I actually am grateful that I have that mindset because I
yeah,
look at some of the younger folks who live day to day and just spend everything on clothes and looking cool. I think the biggest threat to someone's wealth today is what I call cool syndrome. Is like when you try really hard and you spend all of your money on looking cool just so
yeah,
you can get the approval of others, and it doesn't matter, like, but when you're in the middle of it, it's like that's the most important thing. And I think everybody has cool syndrome, even like Jeff Bezos,
I
like
was
with
just
his
gonna go there. He totally has cool syndrome. He's like, hey, look
yeah,
at the city block I just bought in like Singapore.
yeah,
He total look
yeah,
cool. Look at this yacht I just bought for
yeah,
$300 million. Total look
exactly.
cool syndrome, right?
And they do it on that level, and Elon Musk does it, everybody does it. Um, and in a way, you know like my hero, my example is Warren Buffett, right?
I
Like
love him.
he lived in the same house for like 50 years or whatever, only changes his Cadillac every 6 or 7 years or whatever, when buying a new car is cheaper than maintaining it, and cost of repairs and whatever. But at the same time, I also feel like you don't need to be too frugal, because that's something that, when you were talking about the scarcity mindset, that's the thing that I really find within myself. Sometimes, like, me and my partner, we're in the grocery store, and I'm still like, yeah, yeah, well, let's get whatever's on discount versus the stuff that I always eat. And I'm like, why am I even thinking about this? Why should I save on groceries? Doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
Well, okay, it makes sense because, like, that's what we did. We only
yeah,
bought what was on discount every single week. It was not like, oh yeah, I want this thing. Well, yeah, wait until it's on discount, right?
right. Yeah, yeah. That's funny. So that's to
So,
your point. Old
yeah.
habits die hard, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I constantly need to remind myself that, look, you don't have to do it. And every maybe 10 times, 8 times, I'll remind myself to not do it. 2 times, I'll cop out and I'll buy whatever's on discount. But it's okay, because I rather have that. But at the same time, I feel like I don't want to do that for everything, because I strongly feel that life is, when you look back on life later on, I think it's just a collection of your memories. And I don't want to take away memories for myself just because I've been being too frugal, or being too, having this scarcity mindset, where to the point where I kind of stop living. That's the thing that I'm constantly trying to avoid. Um, so, and that's what Stoicism also really helps, because it really helps you to focus on what matters. It's like a kind of a filtering system. You can say, okay, buying a new car every year, not important. Going on a vacation every year with family and everything, important. Okay, spend money, right? So I really use it that way. Is this important? Yes or no? And then that really simplifies life.
I love that,
So,
man. Man, I'm so sorry that we're running out of time here. We have a hard stop here in a few minutes. I do, unfortunately. I could talk to you for at least another hour, but the book goes on sale. So we have your new book, The Stoic Path to Wealth. This is Penguin is your publisher. Is that correct?
yeah, that's
Yeah, yeah.
right.
So you got a major publisher in
Portfolio.
this
Yeah.
book, and I saw that you had an endorsement from one of our former guests, Morgan Housel. So awesome endorsement from him. Really pumped for the success of this book. But it goes on sale July 16th, 2024. Why don't you tell people where they can learn more about the book, get copies of the book? We'll make sure we put this out before your launch date, so you have a successful launch, and how they can connect with you. And then I'd love to quickly do the greatness question.
Yeah, thanks. Really appreciate it. So, yeah, best way to find out more is on my website, dariusforoux.com, or simpler, stoicpathtowealth.com.
All right, we'll make sure we put that. You guys go out there, support Darius, a fellow Darius in his journey. Can't wait to hear the book. This is gonna be my book that I put on my Audible. Is it gonna be available on Audible when it comes out on the 16th?
Yes,
is that
also
correct?
Audible, yeah.
All right, I'm pumped. I'm pumped to have a book on Stoicism. Well, two of my favorite topics. So, Darius, are you ready for the greatness question?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So, what is the number one barrier to creating greatness that you've overcome in your life, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, we already talked about it, but for me, it's really overcoming that scarcity mindset and starting to think in opportunities and possibilities and focusing on my skills as the foundation, and make sure that everything else comes as a side product or as a bonus. And looking at life that way really helped me to grow and also to enjoy it a lot more.
Love that, man. Darius, oh my gosh, I'm so blessed to have you on the show. From one Darius to another, mad love to you, my friend. Huge kudos on the book, and really excited to have you on the show today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for having me, Darius. Weird to say.
Hey man, we got to do.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, I just want to say I really appreciate it, and it's awesome to connect with you. And definitely, we gotta, reverse the roles.
Let's do it, baby. I'll reach out to you. Until next time. Peace out, everybody. We love you, Darius. I'm coming to your show, and you're going to have to call me Darius right back. All right. Take care, everybody.
She's my lover. You are listening to The Greatness Machine, and that's a wrap for today. Listen, if you love what you heard, subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform that you're tuning in on so that you don't miss any of our future episodes. We have tons of great people coming on, and we're stoked to have you here to enjoy it with us. Leave us a review. Tell us what you love most about this particular episode. We love getting the reviews. We love to see what you guys love most. And if this particular episode, made you think of someone who's leveling up in their business and in their life, print screen, share it with them. Leaders are the best givers. And after all, we're all here to support and grow with each other. And in case you want to see some of the fun behind the scenes shots or some of the things that we're doing, I'm actually writing about this in my weekly newsletter. Go to www.therealdarius.com and subscribe to my newsletter. We're talking about fun things like business and life and mindfulness and cryptocurrencies and gosh, I don't even know, everything and anything, but it's tons of fun stuff I write about. I try to get it out on a weekly basis. You can subscribe at www.therealdarius.com. And with that said, look, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace. We're out of here. See you guys on the next one.
She's my lover.